My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast.
And we're back.
It's the Great British Bake Off, and we're back. And we're
Finally.
we're all pretending this is live, and we're not live, but it's the first time it's been seen anywhere, and nobody knows what happened.
Direct from the UK.
Perfectly direct. In fact, not only is it direct, but it's one of those ones, you know how sometimes we get those ones where they go fast-tracked?
Yeah.
It's fast-tracked.
You know what? This is fast-tracked like you were coming from England in 1922.
It's so fast-tracked, right? It hasn't even been seen in England.
Yes, I'm just going to go say goodbye to my aged relatives because it's likely I will never see them again.
Yes.
As I jump onto a cruise ship to head to Australia.
We're going to sail for 3 months to Australia, and by the time we get there, so will Bake Off. Obviously, that's how they decided to transport this series of the Great British Bake Off. So, we are back. Some of you...
Well, it's the 1920s again, or the 20s again, not the 1920s.
Here we are. We're going to do the whole show like this.
Oh, look at those cads there. I think they're coming back from a speakeasy.
I have no problem with this. I like using my radio voice.
I have a radio voice too.
Bake Off.
Yeah.
Tent of wonder. Tent of excitement. And this is going to get really annoying. So we'll go back to a normal voice. So
exactly.
Thank you for those people who are listening again and are still with us. Brave. Congratulations.
And welcome to the secret club, because it was a secret launch of Great British Bake Off in Australia.
It was a secret to everyone.
You had to have the secret handshake.
I have never had to reach out
Passcode.
I've never had to reach out to so many different people to find out if a show was on TV or not.
It was like there was a Bake Off prohibition.
Yeah, you needed to try to, we had to get through.
What's the password, wise guy?
And everyone was looking forward to Sweet Lady Baking. It's you had to go digging. This is the Prohibition Bake Off. And we got a title. So
it did jump a little bit into the future though, with 1937 and Judy Garland.
It was very much a start.
And then it came back.
So it was, like for those people in Australia, obviously, if you're listening to this in the UK, first of all, well done and welcome. Secondly, good luck. And third, you're listening to this well and truly after the fact. You've all seen what's going on in this.
Yeah.
But for those of us in Australia, they really held on to this series for a very long time.
But they did it to us last year as well, which is quite frustrating because, we're trying to support our local media and we have to wait.
The biggest problem, of course, is, we talk about this being a delay. For those people in Britain who may not be aware, the last series of the Great Australian Bake Off
took a year and a half.
Yeah, it was almost 2 years by the time it came out. So, it's been held onto for a while. I don't know why they're hanging on to the Bake Off, but nobody in Australia knew.
There was Bake Off hoarding.
Nobody in Australia knew that this was on. I contacted a bunch of people within the TV sort of industry to ask them. They had to go digging, and eventually I got an answer from somebody who managed to find the answer. But today I tweeted out to everyone, we're back, and this is what's happening, and here's the drinking game, and we'll get to the drinking game in a moment. And we're all watching, and the number one response was, really? When did that happen?
Ta-da!
So, look, I'm really full of praise for Foxtel, but
Pick up your game. Come on.
Publicise it, damn it. Seriously, everybody knows that Bake Off has a massive audience within Australia. Comparatively for what it is, it has a huge audience.
Look, it's probably got a bigger audience now than My Kitchen Rules.
It definitely has a larger audience than My Kitchen Rules for anyone who's been keeping track.
The 3 a.m., Vietnamese news on SBS, on their third channel down, probably has a bigger audience than My Kitchen Rules at the moment.
You know who definitely has a bigger audience than My Kitchen Rules?
Who?
Huda, which is on the shopping channel, selling products. Anyway, we'll come back to that later. So, let's get into the Great British Bake Off, shall we? And we have the Baker's Dozen returning. Now, this kind of feels, and look, far be it from us to claim that people are listening to what we think.
But you are. We know you are.
You are for a start. But far be it from us to think we're important enough that people are listening. But we've been saying all the way through,
you need to put a rando in.
We want a decoy. You should have a decoy. And Nicole talked about that and said it was a great idea.
Work experience kid.
Yeah, the gaffer, the runner, a guy who's just holding a boom. You put someone in as the decoy because you never like losing someone week one.
No.
I'm not going to lie. Tonight, it kind of felt like they did it but then it felt like they didn't send him home.
I know, because I swear blind. What's his face? Jamie. Jamie was the assistant to the assistant regional manager.
He couldn't have looked, to be honest with you, Jamie couldn't have cared less. And it's not, and before anyone goes, you're bagging him out, not at all.
It was very endearing.
We mean it in the most wonderful way.
But he just
I love the fact that he kept fucking up, and rather than getting upset about it, he was just like, oh. And like he said at the end, he goes, when you can't bake a cake in Bake Off, that's kind of a problem. And like he thought it was hilarious that he was still in there. It feels like he's the guy who was supposed to be set up to go home.
And
they forgot. And they picked the wrong guy.
Yes.
So quickly I'll run through who's in there.
Okay, do that.
So we have Alice, who's a geography teacher.
Yeah.
We have Amelia, who's a fashion designer. We have Dan, who is a support worker, who's awesome. We have David, who's an international health advisor. That sounds like a made-up title. It sounds like what you say when you're in between jobs.
No,
and you're like, what do you do? International health advisor.
Look, the thing I was pleased to see, he was less about the Insta stories and more about the World Health Organization kind of like putting in.
I do have to follow up because, I just bagged out David for a fake job. Helena is an online project manager.
That makes sense.
No, that feels again like an online project manager could be I go on Twitter. That's technically online project managing.
How? You can't do a project on Twitter.
If your project is your Twitter feed, guess what? You're managing your Twitter feed. Online project manager.
Can't make a diorama on Twitter though.
Not with that attitude. Henry is a student. Possibly also going through puberty.
English literature student.
Yeah, possibly going through puberty as well. Jamie, definitely going through puberty given the voice crack when he went up for judging. It says part-time waiter. It doesn't say runner, best boy, grip, or whatever his position was on the crew.
Yeah.
Michael, who is a theatre manager and a fitness instructor. I'd like to think he gets those two mixed up from time to time.
All right, people, look at me at the front.
Everybody, to row A and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and aisle and 5 and 6. That's how he seats. It's great. Michelle, who is a print shop administrator. Phil, who is a big truck driver.
A lorry driver. I think you'll find they call it.
He was the working class touch.
He's a working class man.
Priya is a marketing consultant. Again, if I'm going to say there's made-up job titles.
They're not made-up job titles. It's
marketing
the
consultant.
2020s.
Have you thought about selling this? Yes? Cool. What about an ad? Have you used an ad?
Okay, go back like 30 years to when we were kids in the classroom. We were told the jobs that you'll have won't exist. I mean, it doesn't count for you because you're a fucking teacher.
The job that I have is the job that they told me to work out what I wanted to do when I grew up. Yeah. And by the way, I didn't pick it.
Mine didn't exist, but if you'd have said to someone in the year 2020, someone would be an online project manager.
They wouldn't have known what that meant.
But it sounds cool in space age. Like, I would have thought more of like a hoverboard designer. Or like a
we could have done with a hoverboard designer because we don't have one.
I know, that would be awesome.
Right, and last but not least is Steph. Oh, sorry, Rosie. I almost forgot your favourite, Rosie. You love Rosie.
Don't forget Rosie. I like a whole lot of Rosie.
Rosie's a vet, and boy, we'll get to Rosie in a minute. And Steph, who's a shop assistant. So that's...
Doesn't Steph work in her mum's special car?
Yeah, but officially they called her a shop assistant. But she works in the classic car place. We'll get to that.
It's not like she's going,
I'm not...
Can I help you?
I'm not bagging her out. I'm going by how...
The culottes are over there on the left.
I'm going by how they described her with British Bake Off.
We don't have mustard culottes, I'm sorry.
Mustard culottes.
Yes.
So the Wizard of Oz opening.
Oh my God, how hot did Noel look?
Can I just say that...
Oh my God.
Can I just say that Prue was the MVP of that whole scene. She was, but the thing was, she owned the scene. The rest of them were a little bit more like Hollywood was stilted. Some of them were still. She just burst into the scene. What's wrong? Oh, it's the only costume they had left, and it wasn't done in that campy overboard way.
No,
it was just like Prue was owning that shit. Like a character in one of her steamy romance novels. She was owning that shit.
You know, I reckon there was a few outtakes of her doing the whole put 'em up. Put 'em up,
I tells ya. Put 'em up.
Yes, but Noel looked hot. Did you know I played Dorothy?
You played Dorothy?
Yeah, but it was back in the olden days where glitter wasn't as...
Yeah.
Like, it was expensive. Like, that was a high cost item. So we couldn't make ruby slippers. Mm-hmm. So my mum got cheap joggers and painted them silver.
I nearly got killed in a production of The Wiz.
How?
I wasn't in it.
How many black people did you have in there?
I was sitting in the front row. There were none.
Of course not.
I was sitting in the front row. And a group of my friends we used to go to some local theatres and go and see some amateur productions of things. And we made a bit of a habit of this. And we went to a production of The Wiz. And at the end of Act 1, it was so bad. We never did this, but we took a poll as to whether we went back in for Act 2. But during Act 1 at one point, Dorothy spun around and she had beads, really large red beads on her dress. And she spun around and I got hit in the head by two of them as they flew off the dress into the front row. And then it gets better. So it's nighttime and we're sitting in the front row and I have the sunglasses with me because we've been there. I just had them sitting on the front of my shirt because I was a wanker. And I'm sitting there.
Still are.
Thank you, dear. And I'm sitting in the front row, and the lighting was really poorly aimed, and all of the lights were aimed not at the stage but at the front row. So we all put our sunglasses on because it was so bright we couldn't see. So up on stage, all they could see up on stage was the front row wearing sunglasses. And meanwhile, I'm still ducking because Dorothy's dress is throwing things. And meanwhile, there's some guy who was in his mid-50s going, pour some oil on me. It was the weirdest experience of my life. This was a much better Wizard of Oz. So
it sounded part musical, part torture chamber.
It was both things. So let's get into the actual episode, shall we?
Yes.
Because we're still not into the episode.
We've just gone to the opening.
We've been to the opening of The Wiz. All right, so the first challenge was a fruitcake, or my idea of hell. So 2.5 hours to make a fruitcake. My suggestion would be throw it out and start again. But they all went with different styles. There's lots of marzipan. Now, some people I thought did this better than others. Those were the people that avoided any form of raisin.
You really don't like raisins.
Oh.
Look, I'm not a fan of raisins. And I have to agree, you know, it's just it can be left out. We've got access to so many fruits these days. Like, you name it, we can get it any time of the year. This isn't like the 1900s. This isn't 1920. This is 2020.
We're not making fruitcake to preserve things because, we need to store it for years.
We haven't gone, oh, Father, have we got any rations left over that we can make a beautiful cake for Mammy's birthday?
Now this episode of the podcast will be a little bit different than the complete rundown of normal. And the reason is, to be honest with you, it went so stupidly quickly that at one point when they got to the technical, I gave up. My hands I'm flying typing my notes. I just looked at Kristie, threw the laptop to one side and went, nah.
Fuck it.
Not doing this.
Just wing it. It's free and easy like me.
So this is going to be a little bit more loosey-goosey. Now, I do have some information on the cakes.
Welcome to the loose side.
No, I'm still controlling the damn thing. Right, so we're going to start with Amelia. So she made a Christmas cake.
Ho, ho.
Now, as Prue pointed out, she does her fruit the exact same way, which should probably stand you in good stead, really.
Yeah.
Now, she had marzipan stars on the outside and orange brandy, and this started the drinking game. So let's quickly run through the drinking game. Hollywood Handshake didn't happen. Noel distracts a baker. That didn't happen. The technical is something they've never heard of. No, they'd all heard of that. I just turned my back for a minute disaster. Didn't happen. Baker says a bake is inspired by a family member. Yep.
So many grandmothers.
All the fruitcakes were grandmother inspired. Yep. Matcha didn't happen. Thank you. Yuzu didn't happen. Booze in a bake. My God. I apologise to livers everywhere. I didn't know the first challenge was a fruitcake. And before people go, oh, you could have... No, I didn't look it up before I do that. I would have ruined the fun of the drinking game. I didn't realise the first cake was a
Hand on
fruitcake.
heart, I have no idea.
Kristie has
about-
zero idea.
I muted the GBBO hashtag. I still won't look it up for fear of
Yep.
being
So
like
it could be
ruined.
that. It could be that Kristie doesn't like your tweets, one or the other. But
bit of column A, bit of column B.
But I do actually sort of know, but I'm not telling her because it's more fun this way.
Exactly.
Booze in a bake. There's lots of booze in the bake because it's fruitcake, and so sorry. But also the last one, we finally got it. Paul and Prue disagree on a bake. We got to the end today,
Yep.
and they disagreed on a bake. Paul's like, "This is shit," and Prue's like, "What do you want about?"
Yeah, Paul's like, don't like your jungle. I'm more about a furry garden. And Prue's like, no, I'm here for the jungle.
We'll come back to the furry garden later. So,
I just made a brief mention of it. Just adding some sizzle, my love.
so Michelle now.
Sizzle in a furry garden.
Now, Michelle seemed to be following in Ian's footsteps and growing everything as herself. Like, she was making everything. The booze, everything was made herself.
Yeah, she's like, this is flour that I milled by hand after, reaping the wheat that I'd sown last spring.
It was like when she was talking about the booze and Noel's like, well, I can just come over and just sort of, like, just start taking it. So Steph works with classic cars. Now, she was making this cake in honour of her grandmother. And the good news, the bad news, obviously, is that unfortunately her grandmother is no longer
Great-grandmother.
with us. I thought it was a normal grandmother.
Oh, possibly.
But
either or.
the good news, unfortunately she's dead, but the good news is
She'll help you find stuff.
there's jobs in the afterlife because she's working as an object service finder.
Yeah.
So if you lose an object, you can ask Steph's grandmother to find it and she will find it for you. And I don't think there's a fee because what's she going to spend the money on? She's dead. I don't think the currency translates. I mean, look, Britain's clearly cut itself off from Europe now, so the euro's useless. And if the euro's useless, what does it say about afterlife money?
Exactly.
I
wonder if she's had to Brexit. Like, has heaven got borders? And what's going on there?
Yeah, exactly. What's the quality control going on over there? Now, if Steph's grandmother can find things, I think that Scotland Yard could probably get in touch at some point soon. There's a bunch of unsolved mysteries they've never been on. Like again, my main one. Forget that. It's British Bake Off. Where's Lord Lucan? I want to know if Steph's grandmother can help Scotland Yard find Lord Lucan, and if she can, why haven't they made a television series yet which involves Steph's grandmother solving missing persons crime?
Oh my god, it's like, the
My Mother the Car?
the Love-matic grandpa.
Yeah, which is based on My Mother the Car. And it's so you got the Love-matic grandpa, My Mother the Car, my grandmother
The
who
fruitcake.
finds things.
Like, she's a detective.
The Unsolved Mysteries music plays.
Like
That could be
Murder, She
great.
Wrote meets Unsolved Mysteries meets...
Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Ghost Rider. Word. Now let's get to your favourite person. Now, everyone at Rosie's work apparently thinks she's nuts. Now, I find that hard to believe. She simply proves her dough in the snake terrarium. What's wrong with that?
There is nothing wrong. It's a constant warm temperature.
The second Rosie
Snake's not going
mentioned...
to eat it. It's like, that is a grain-based substance.
The second
no
Rosie-
mice in sight.
The second Rosie mentioned that, you squealed and went, I love her. She's
like
amazing.
Baker Doolittle. She's just like she had a little bearded dragon or like water monitor or whatever it was wandering past.
It was fantastic. And look, Rosie had much better things happening too. We'll come to that in a moment.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, they showed a bunch of travel photos, and for me, they seemed a little bit like Tinder Bingo. Now...
Okay, please
to explain Tinder Bingo, I've done it once before on the podcast. Tinder Bingo involves looking at the photos on people's Tinder profiles. And there are certain things you're looking for because everybody seems to have them.
I'm at a wedding, so I'm all dressed up photo.
Yep, a series of photos, 3 or 4 of them in a row where you don't know which one is the person whose profile it is.
Because they're with another person.
Picture of somebody with a child with a caption under it that says, not my child.
Drink in hand.
Drink in hand if they're a girl with the leg cocked up. If they're at a beach, are they at the snow? And more importantly, the way you win Tinder Bingo is Machu Picchu.
Automatic. It's
Automatic
like catching
victory.
the snitch.
Yeah, it is. It's catching this. It's the equivalency of catching the snitch is Machu Picchu.
Should we make it like Tinder Quidditch? Like 2 people can go at it, right? And they start. You have different points for the different photos, but an instant win.
We've sort of I've done that before.
And 200 points.
I've done that before. I was
Machu Picchu.
I was sitting in a pub with friends, showing them Tinder Bingo, and we're sitting there and I'm doing it, and suddenly, like, everyone's looking at our table because they're like, I've got Machu Picchu! And everyone was looking at us really weirdly. But poor Michael, his photo, like, it was him in front of the Taj Mahal. It was him with a bunch of children, where I probably had the caption, not my child. And the reason why it's not his child is clearly he's a baby himself.
He's barely out of the cradle.
I don't believe he is. And far more importantly, he continued in this episode to try to slice himself to pieces. First shot, they did the first big panning shot of the tent.
Cutting himself.
He already cut himself. Then later on, he did it a second time.
But as they mentioned the second time, that finger that had been, like, so it was his thumb and his pointer finger and his rude finger.
Yeah.
The pointer finger was being bandaged because the rude finger and the thumb had already been, like, bandaged up.
By the technical, they just had the blue glove on him. They just gave up.
I'm just imagining him either going, it's just bottom scratch, or save the liver.
You know what I wanted? Save the liver. Don't throw it away. You know what I wanted to see? I wanted to see him in a shark suit. You know those metal suits you wear when you go diving with sharks?
Yes.
By the end of this series, I just want Michael inside the bake-off tent in a shark suit mesh.
Just give him, like, children's cutlery, like, implements.
He's not allowed to have a knife. Can't dice anything. No knives, not allowed. And at this point, Hollywood started lurking. Now Dan decided...
Speaking of sharks...
Now, Dan decided at this point to double the fruit. That's always a mistake. But he also decided to add more booze. So...
It's like double the fruit, double the booze.
Doesn't work, unfortunately, because the double the fruit made it a bit problematic.
Soggy.
Come back to that in
He
a
had a
moment.
soggy middle.
All right, I'm going to say this straight up.
Yeah.
David is about healthy alternative baking. I'm not going to enjoy him. I'm just going to tell you straight up.
Dave, I really wanted to like you because I liked your shirt and I liked your profession.
Look, I may come to
and he
begrudgingly...
has a trampoline.
I may come to begrudgingly admire you, but the healthy alternative baking, that just feels like such a killjoy moment. I mean, it's...
At least call it inclusive baking.
But, I mean, I refer to, friend of the show, Brandon, who we're talking about... we were talking about him and his baking, and he quoted Nigella Lawson, "I don't believe in low-fat cooking." And when the Queen herself says that, you got to listen to the Queen. So, like, if your first bake starts off with, and everything's going to be healthy alternatives, I'm not listening anymore. I'm looking at the person making the chocolate cake. Now, Phil decided to go with a centerpiece of marzipan. Like, just, you got a roll of marzipan. I'm like...
How's that going to work?
But what I
will
will say is, first of all, his wife told him to do it, and secondly, he did something that I've got to give him credit for. He knew the judges, because I forgot, because it's been so bloody long. Thanks, Foxtel. Prue Leaf.
Marzipan fan.
Loves marzipan. Prue Leaf, marzipan fan.
She's a Marzifan.
Marzifan. She is indeed. The Marzifan Prue Leaf. So everybody sort of remembered that. So there was marzipan as far as the eye could see. And
well done.
Well done. Clever moment. And it looked cool, that, like, one spot of marzipan in the middle of every slice.
Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that Phil's wife is his baking coach. Like, she's there, like, just on the side in a tracksuit.
Stopwatch towel.
Stopwatch. Oh, just,
You gotta have a montage. A bake training montage.
With a lorry driver.
Now, I love that Priya's first line in the whole series was Paul Hollywood looking over her shoulder and her going, "It'll look better, I promise." Now, I really liked what Priya did. And the reason I really liked what Priya did is it was dried tropical fruits.
Which is no sultanas.
No sultanas, no raisins, nothing like that. It was pineapple, there was mango, and I was here for it.
Yep.
I am perfectly happy with all of those flavours. Now, Alice, the geography teacher, Now, she was using baking and cake to teach. So she was like using wave patterns and getting the kids to use cake as the different cross-sections of the wave.
Can you do that successfully at school?
Okay, so on one hand, it's a great concept. On the other hand, food allergies say no.
But what if it's a nut-free, dairy-free,
Then it's not worth bringing.
flavour-free?
Then it's not worth bringing. Then
It's
why?
essentially just a glass of water.
Yeah, and we can do glasses of water with those sorts of challenges. That's fine. Look, a cool idea, wonderful idea, and I love the idea of using cake to teach. But occupational health and safety, some kid is having an allergy.
How would you use cake to teach?
How would I use cake to teach?
If food allergies weren't
All
a
right,
thing,
I'll give you the example of how I have used cake to teach.
trebuchet,
Okay, I'll give you an example of how I've used
cake
cake.
fort.
I'll give you an example of how
Pyramid.
I've used cake to teach in the past, right? So we do a rotational thing within our staff room where everybody buys a cake for the next person's birthday. So for my birthday, the person whose birthday it is before me, they buy the cake for me. I buy the cake for the next person, and so on. And the way that I use cake to teach is I walk in eating the cake. And the kids go, "Can I have some of that, sir?" And I go, "Someone's had an allergy, probably not." And sit at the front and eat it.
That is so mean.
Isn't it? Fantastic. You know when I really like doing that? 4 terms in when they've been jerks. So, they've got to learn. Now, Jamie apparently has a twin brother.
It was eerie. I fell for it. I fell for that staged
You fell
mirror.
for the stage mirror has two faces moment, didn't
Yeah.
you?
I thought we're through the looking glass.
Now, I put down in my notes, before everything happened, I asked if he could do twin magic and could they do double the work in half the time. What I'm now wondering is if maybe because Jamie had such a bad first week, if his brother can do the second one.
just substitute.
They can just rotate.
maybe
One of them's... Maybe... Well, what if they'd actually thought about this and one of them specialised in cake and bread, and the other one did pastry and biscuits, and you rotate depending on what the week is.
Is it Jamie or is it iMadge?
I love
That's
it.
Jamie backwards.
iMadge.
Mirror image.
iMadge.
iMadge comes in and he's like, "It's okay, Jamie. I've got your back." And like for a moment, Noel thinks he's seeing double and like shakes his head, and there's only one there, and he's like, "Oh, must have been the acid I drank last night." It's not Fielding. I presume it's what he takes to go to bed with.
I'm on iMadge. Anyway, I hope iMadge makes an appearance next week because you've got a chance now. Now, you also really loved Helena.
Oh, isn't she just adorable?
Oh,
now,
she's wonderful.
I think she's got a Spanish accent, or Portuguese or something, but she is just adorable. And I was really looking forward to what she was going to produce, and she didn't disappoint, except for the melty bat wings.
Yeah, I mean, I did love Noel, where he goes from
bat cake.
one goth to another, you'll be fine.
Exactly.
And then the last person we got to meet here was we got to meet Henry, and Henry decided to go flora on us and make a house.
It's like, this is the first challenge I'm going to do. I'm going to make it pretty fucking phenomenal.
I'm going to make a couple of layers of fruitcake, and I'm going to build a house out of royal icing and put that on top, because why not?
It would have looked spectacular.
It
still looked beautiful.
We'll come to what happened to the poor
Okay.
house, because the house, yeah. So, at this point, they brought out the skewers, and everyone was just poking the cake. Now, I love when because Henry then points out he's like finishing piping the house, and Noel comes up to him and he goes, looks at him and he goes, "I need to get this on top of the cake." And Noel goes, "And how are you going to do that?" And Henry thought for half a second, and then just mimed lifting it, and was like, "Just like that? Like that's all?" And Noel looks at him and goes to go, "Oh, yeah, okay, fine, you do that." And then we were interrupted by the thudding of fruitcakes.
Just thunk.
And it's a different moment in Bake Off where you go from everybody putting a cake out and it's like there's no noise to like just benches going bang as like really heavy fruitcakes hit them.
It's when at Christmas time, and it's usually an older relative. In our family, it's my dad. He'll get you like a tin of something, and it looks nice, but it just weighs a fucking ton, and you're like, fruitcake.
What I was intrigued by from an eating perspective is they started with a fruitcake.
Yeah.
They started with the heaviest possible thing they could find.
And there's 13 of them to go through.
Yeah, so they had to eat 13 fruitcakes.
Maybe they really needed to get regular. Like it had been a very dry.
It was weighing on
summer,
it was weighing on their
lots of
mind.
carbs,
It was weighing on their mind.
Not a lot of fibre.
It was weighing on their mind, their conscience, and their colons.
I mean,
anyway,
if you look at Health Boy, what's his name? David. His cake, right? All the prunes and stuff. Like you could use that as a colonic.
The interesting thing
it was so chock full of things that will clean out Uranus.
Can I point out the interesting counterpoint here? We've just come off the back, obviously, of Australian Bake Off.
It's like, will I have Pico Prep or will I just have a slice of that
David's
cake?
But can I just point out, we've just come off the back of Australian Bake Off. And the David in this series and the David in Australian Bake Off could not be more different if you tried.
The Australian David is the mirror image, nay, the inversion of UK David.
So he's like Jamie and his twin.
But like from Bizarro World.
100%. Although, David's awesome. So
both Davids are good.
Both Davids are good. I probably would appreciate one of theirs baking more than the other. Just saying.
Look, we've still got 13 bakers or 12 bakers to go.
We've still got a full series of bakers left.
Yeah.
After this one episode, we've still got a full series of this.
Maybe he's healthy like Anston is a vegan. And he will cook with sugar and butter and stuff
until David convinces him that something that is not vegan is definitely vegan. All right, so Dan then did the bake-off thing, the waving of the sheet, and I loved her. He goes, "I'm doing it." He goes, "You're doing the bake-off thing." He goes, "I am." Does it work? No. And of course it doesn't work. And then Henry, at the very end, as they all get ready for the judgment, smashes his house into 1,000,000 pieces.
Oh, that broke my heart a little bit.
See, I was fine with it, but the reason I was fine with it, Prue did something that I've always wanted to hear them do. We'll come to that now with the judging.
Okay.
Because I loved what Prue did with her judging. It's something that I think has to happen a bit more in parts of Bake Off.
Yeah.
So we'll go through the judging, and when I get to Dan, when I get to his house, I'll mention it. So,
right.
Priya, it was simplistic but effective. They said it was good colour. Prue really liked it. They said it was very light and it was very summery. So that was and it was very well baked. Jamie's had an Easter feel.
I don't know what told you that was Easter, whether it was the blind, no-eyed chicks.
They said it held really well, it was delicious, but it was also mostly marzipan. It doesn't feel like a cake to me, but anyway. Henry. Now, what I loved about this was, Prue said, it's a shame the house didn't work, but the bake is the most important thing here.
Yes.
I'm not worried about the house. The bake is what matters. Thank you.
Phew, Prue.
There are times where you do need to decorate. A fruitcake is probably not that time. So while he wasted his time doing the house, and I did say on Twitter that I thought it was the largest waste of time anyone could possibly have had, a fruitcake doesn't need that level of decoration, and as a result, you worry about the baking of the fruitcake. So I thought it was great. Now, if this was the decorative cake at the end, different story altogether.
But you think of it right. He puts this much effort and can achieve what he achieved in that moment. If that house had come off, like that would have been fucking spectacular. That would have set him up for Star Baker for sure.
100%. They said the cake, though, was absolutely lovely. Now, Amelia's, they said it was moist with good flavour and lots of fruit. Can I just point out as well, we didn't get Mary Berry's big bugbear, which is that normally with a fruitcake, all the fruit goes to the bottom.
Yeah,
everyone had distribution of fruit. It was fantastic. Phil's, they said, looked beautiful with good icing, and then we had a run of ones where they got really spicy. So they said Phil's was really spicy and needed a bit more fruit. The flavours were out of balance. Helena's, they said it was really spicy. Paul said it was almost savoury. It was that spicy.
He liked it.
But he liked it.
Yeah.
He's like, it's really savoury. He goes, but I actually really like that. So, I mean, that was interesting. Then Michelle. Now, poor Michelle. Michelle managed a double whammy for the ages. Now, she tried to ice her cake while it was still really hot. So everything melted. But then he had to saw through the cake itself because it was like cement. But the flavour was excellent.
Yeah.
So, and it didn't hurt her because she, Star Baker. So it didn't hurt her. Steph, they said the colour was really good, the flavour was nice, and it was a very juicy cake because they said the fruit was quite juicy.
It's like PK gum.
I like
juicy fruit.
You would like juicy fruit, like PK gum. Juicy fruit, the one with juicy in the title.
I don't know. It's 30 years ago.
Rosie. Now, they did say the cake looked a bit sad and flat. And she's like, yeah, a little bit. Paul thought that it had too much cinnamon and was underbaked. Not a good start. You know what she needed?
What?
She needed the snake to look after it for a bit. Maybe mix it for her.
Maybe that's who her taster is. Like
Maybe.
Like
Excellent.
because she's Baker Doolittle, and maybe the snake has because of its extra sensory
She is
stuff.
Baker Doolittle.
Just a little less cinnamon.
If I could bake with the animals, no. David, they said they needed to pull back on the almond essence, but beyond that, it was really nice. And I love where Alice's cake. She looked at it and she goes, "Now it's got a bit of a kick." And Paul, pulling a very Paul face, goes, "It has."
A bit. Hers was chock full of ginger, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Her cake was the one I said, so much ginger in it, Jerry Halliwell is coming around.
Yes. They really liked Michael's, even though he tried to put a lot of himself into the bake, literally.
What's that slightly metallic-y kind of taste I can aftertaste? That would be my blood.
What's that plasma-y feeling I'm getting?
Tang.
Now, poor Dan, it looked a bit rustic. That was Prue's words. So she's been working on the bake-off euphemisms. Well done. The cake was raw, but the booze was good. So, victory. Now, we have to ask the question at this point in time.
Yeah.
Paul Hollywood, BTS member or bad guy in Red Dead Redemption?
Little column A, little column B.
But the coat was something else.
And just the asymmetricalness of it, it was so neat. It must have been fucking cold, to be quite honest. Everyone looked a bit chilly.
Everyone looked freezing.
There's a lot of wind and rain in the background.
Even Sandy looked cold, and for a Randy Scandy like Sandy, it's
to be chilly.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's something else entirely. The technical.
Noel couldn't feel it because he's a vampire.
You're not used to it. So the technical. The technical, you had to make 6 angel cake slices. You had 1 3/4 hours. It was interesting, by the way, they went with 1 3/4. It's not a timing they use a lot.
Yeah.
They usually use 1 or 1.5, but 1 3/4 is interesting. I liked this because we got the Genovese sponge out of the way. You have to do one at some point in Bake Off. Let's do it early.
I was surprised that not everyone had made one. Because, again, we always go back to... I mean, this is its 10th year.
Yep.
There's a pretty strong format. There's a pretty strong idea of what you need the skills that you should have under your belt. One of them should be a Genoese sponge.
A Genoese sponge is something you need to be able to make to go on Bake Off because they do it all the time and it's deliberately done to trip people over. Yep. Because it's really easy to make it into rubber.
And it's one of those things that define the difference between Bake Off and a lot of the American baking shows. The American baking shows are usually focused on if something looks beautiful. You know what I mean?
There's Rice Krispies Ahoy.
Yeah, it's like, can I mould it into a Rice Krispie thing and sculpt it within an inch?
Which we saw a little bit of in the Showstopper.
But that was valid. The Bake Off really focuses on flavour and skill and technique, and you should have some of those.
And to work with that, Prue gave them a 15-step recipe.
Yeah.
And as they said...
This wasn't Canadian Bake Off, where you'll just get 3 in the first week.
As she said, I'm feeling a little bit mean, because as she said, the worry is they're going to overmix it, and it'll be rubbery. We'll come back to Jamie in a moment.
I mean, if he'd have made his in the shape of what Phil did later with his space shuttle, could have used them as a prophylactic.
If he'd made it round and black, it could have been vulcanized rubber and he could have driven home on it. But I love Dan where he said, the instructions look really clear to me though.
If he made the yellow layer but shaped it into a duck, Ernie and Bert would be happy.
Would have floated. Yes, and I like where Dan said the instructions look really clear to me so far. I'm on step 1. Good work. So Sandy and Henry, what a conversation. When Sandy says to him, how many of these slices have you made in your time? And Henry goes, none. And Sandy under her breath goes, that's because you're 12. And then she goes, I once got ID'd once in Scandinavia, and he goes, really? And she goes, it was very dark.
There does come a point in your life. Now, people might not know this because of my youthful good looks. I'm approaching 40
We're
in
in
the next few
Christmas.
weeks.
We're in Christmas.
We're officially in Christmas. I'm approaching 40 in a few weeks. And it has occurred to me how embryonic a lot of young 20-somethings appear to me now. And, like, I saw someone who I swear blind should have been, I don't know, watching Dora the Explorer, working behind a bar. And I'm just realising that as you age, your brain does some fucked up shit. Because now I'm looking around the people around me and we all look young. We look like we're youthful. And I'm like, but back in the old days, when I was in my 20s and I looked at someone at my current age, I thought they were old.
Kids always assume that you're in your 50s.
Yes.
Always. Now, I don't have that problem with regards to people in age because I'm around it all the time. So, like, it doesn't...
No, you have a touchstone. I have no touchstone.
That's what I'm saying. I have a touchstone, you don't. So I don't have that sort of sudden, oh my God moment because I'm around it all day, every day. And a lot of the, like, again, I'm sorry, I don't want to get all young people, but I do want to ask the question.
In my day.
I do want to ask the question, TikTok. What's up with the one dance?
What do you mean?
Get a new one. They all do the same dance. It's the hands together, they move. There's one dance that everybody does. And it's this just non-stop, the same fucking dance. And I'm like, just do something else.
It's a cultural thing. You think back to the 60s that are either like doing the Batusi or like stomping at Maroubra.
That's your experience. Anyway, I do love Noel playing the bowls. I'm here for it. I want a concert tour of Noel Fielding just playing the bowls.
Yeah, and it's...
That's literally it. 2 notes, whole thing. It's better than most bands from the 1990s who can only play 2 chords. So, 2 notes on a bowl.
He's there.
He's further along than some bands. You two, I'm looking at your direction. The Edge of what?
Glory.
He had one riff. The Edge from U2 has one riff, and he plays the same 3 chord combinations over and over again. So, anyway.
Oh wait, I'll get sued by Bono.
Jamie, he will sue you because, he's not a philanthropist for nothing. So Jamie's measuring. This should have been the cue that there's a bit of a problem here. Jamie measured by just going, oh yeah, 1.5 cups, that'll do. Everyone else is using teaspoons and proper measures, and they've got the measuring cups out. Jamie's, 1.5 cups, essence, that'll do. Rosie wasn't particularly... Look, I'd worry if Rosie was... like maybe checking over your animal and you're asking her about the stool and is there a problem with the colour of this stool? Because Rosie's response with the cake was orange, yellow, it's a spectrum. I don't really want that out of my vet if I take look, my animal's in trouble, what's wrong with the feces? It's a spectrum of colours, it could be a myriad of anything.
There's an unusual discharge leaking from my cat's anus. And she's like, it's not yellow.
She starts red and yellow and pink. No, don't. Just tell me what's wrong with the cat.
It's turquoise.
It's turquoise.
There's turquoise coming out of my cat's butt.
Now, Jamie at this point, they cut back to Jamie who goes, I don't know if I over-whisked it, and just pours this perfectly flat, like it's water, batter. And everyone looks at him and goes, and he's like, I think I might need to make another one.
It's essentially going to be a pancake. And we get, at that point, a half-hour time call.
Yep. And there's no time on the recipe for the oven. They didn't say how long it needed to bake for. Jamie goes, I'll do it again. They cut back to Jamie and he goes, oh, this one's worse than the other one. This is literally rubber. And
half-hour time call.
So he puts it in the oven.
I don't have any time.
He puts it in the oven and he pulls it out again. And it looked like you could use it as like one of those old-fashioned sort of the early dining placemats. Like the really heavy rubber ones you give to the kid when they're having like spaghetti for the first time.
Let's think of a few other uses. Like you could use it to line your garage.
Plug gaps in a swimming pool.
You could use it to...
flotation device if you get lost at sea.
Resole your shoes.
That would be perfect. So poor Jamie, like it really wasn't good, and even Jamie's going, "Oh, this is shit." Jamie knew it was bad. Helena's feathering technique was absolutely brilliant insofar as she got the piping bag and just raced up and down at 1,000,000 miles an hour. There was no line, there was no pattern, there was no rhyme, there was no reason, and I was here for it. I didn't see who the person was. I have a feeling it wasn't Phil. Phil could actually feather. There was someone who it looked like they just got the side of like a book or a pan and just like smashed it onto the thing, and there was this really heavy red one.
Less of a feather, more of like the dinosaur feathers. You know when you see like
It looked more like they'd sliced someone's throat open consistently across the cake.
which you would have expected from Helena.
Jamie, however, looked like it killed someone because his feathering looked more like a blood splatter pattern from like a crime scene.
You just see Dexter coming out with the red string.
Which, let's face it, if you were looking for an appropriate way to describe what Jamie had done, that's close to it.
Murdered the technical.
I'm not going to bother with the judgment on the
There's
technical.
murder in the technical.
But you better not kill the groove, DJ. Now, I'm not even going to bother with the judging of the technical because it went so fucking quickly. That's when I threw the laptop to one side.
Last was?
All you need to know is they absolutely hated Jamie's and they absolutely loved Henry's.
Yep.
That's it. I'm not even going to read out the order.
They were like orange and yellow
I'm not
on a
even
spectrum.
I'm not even going to read it out. They were both types of it. They were on a spectrum of cakes. So let's get into the showstopper, shall we? So it's the cake you dreamed of as a child. Now,
We go on about kids' cakes quite a lot. We go on quite a lot about the Australian Women's
Weekly Cake Book.
Cake book, right? In all honesty, I've had my dream cake as a child. I got the witch cake. So I would have just redone that. However, I'm thinking, that's old. What new thing can I think of as a kid's cake? What would you go for?
TikTok.
Just the dance.
Just the dance.
Just the dance.
You know what I want to meet now?
What?
I want to meet Noel's marzipan hands cake.
Ooh.
You know the one he wanted to shake hands with the marzipan hands cake?
Yes.
I want to meet the cake.
It's like the magic pudding, which is so racist. And
We're going to get close to the magic pudding, though, because we're going to get to the magic faraway tray at some point here. We are. So get excited. So
okay, keep going. Let's move through this so we can get to the magic faraway treat.
I did write down that if David makes a fat-free cake, we riot. Because it was about the dream cake as a child. Now, thankfully, David went the other way, and I'm pleased with that.
You.
So, Helena.
Helena.
Now, forget even singing her name, because there's something far more important we need to discuss. The Scouser couldn't understand what she was saying. Now, normally you
my
can't.
fairy cake.
Normally you can't understand the Scouser, but in this case, he couldn't understand her, and she said "furry garden" at least six times.
Fairy garden.
And Paul's like, "What?" And she's like, "My fairy garden." And,
And you could just slowly see Noel and Prue looking at Paul going, I think I know what
Prue would have worked
imagining.
it out. Prue would have worked it out because she's a writer of steamy romance novels.
She's
and
going to use it next time.
Noel's just filthy. So like, they just looked and they're like, furry garden. Furry garden. And Noel Fielding, who usually, he giggles but he's okay, lost his shit as he worked out that Paul Hollywood was hearing furry garden, not fairy garden. And then Prue, with the timing of a comedic genius, goes, it's more a furry mountain, really. And at that point, Fielding loses the plot. It was so well played. Look, we talked about Prue feeling like, and we talked about it last series, that she's feeling more and more like she's at home. Now it just feels like she's trolling Paul Hollywood.
Yep, she's like, I've got this, and I've got this good. Now, I do have to say, though, like, maybe a 9, 10-year-old child, right, would be happy with a furry garden cake. Not because I think they need a vagina or a pubic hair cake, but it's one of those aspirational things when you're a child. Like, when you're going through pre-puberty, right, you kind of like, are my boobs growing? Am I getting hair anywhere? I've seen the video. Where did I come from? You know, when's my stuff going to start happening? So...
hang on. So you're saying that a child is going to go, when's my stuff going to start happening? If only this was displayed in cake form.
You're right. That would be so wrong.
Wouldn't that be wrong?
Okay, no, a child would hate that.
Isn't it? Okay,
Yeah,
so
you're absolutely right.
Michelle was also making...
They prefer to have it displayed as like a...
diorama.
Yes.
So Michelle was also making a furry garden. No, a fairy. She was making a fairy cake, a Welsh one. I'm not stupid enough to try the pronunciation.
Twillith Tig.
That'll do. So...
It's just Welsh fairies.
And, interestingly enough, though, hers was carrot-based. Now, while the cake was probably absolutely delicious, and obviously star baker, so it was brilliant.
Mm.
As a child,
Yeah.
how many children's parties did you go to where the children were desperately seeking carrot cake?
Okay. Okay. Fucking 0.
Thank you. So,
Because it was always a disappointment if you went anywhere and a fucking carrot cake was served.
hey kids,
That
we've
is
got a
evil.
Hey kids, we've got a fairy cake. Yay! It's carrot. What the fuck?
What kind of fuck?
Like-
But seriously, that's old school fairy. That is trickery right there. That is old school.
The only way it could have been
We're
better.
gonna fucking steal your child and swap it with one of ours.
The only way it could have been better is if the outside was not marzipan but carob. Anyway, Steph, now, it's going to feel cruel here, Steph, and we're not being mean.
We love you, Steph.
We love you, but Steph decided to make a dropped ice cream cone. Mm-hmm. How many times now
Yeah.
have we seen in either Bake Off or MasterChef
Yeah.
a dropped ice cream cone?
Look,
I'm over it.
Yeah, I will give her credit though that she didn't do the whole pretty cake with a small dropped ice cream on the top.
No, it
with
was a really
leaking out.
fucking big dropped ice cream.
It-
But didn't they do it even in British Bake Off? I'm sure British Bake Off did. Someone did one.
It's been around. It's all over Insta.
Yeah, it's an everywhere thing. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So she did do it a bit differently.
now, Priya decided to make a pop-up storybook. Simple choc orange sponge.
She's an author.
But what I want to talk about is Priya as a young child writing her own children's stories. Now, that's great and fantastic, but what is far more important is I love that she wrote her own ISBN numbers. And put them in the front cover of her book.
That is fucking next level.
The copyright thing was great. I used to do copyright on everything I
Yep.
did too.
Yep.
But I really love the ISBN. That is one step beyond.
Fucking brilliant.
I salute you, Priya. That is fantastic.
That is nerding out to next level.
Speaking of nerding out,
Yes.
Harry. Harry made the magic faraway tree. No, sorry.
Sorry, it was-
the secret woodland cake. Called so because the Blyton family will sue.
Yes.
I'm
I'm surprised he didn't have to call it like the miracle long distance bush.
But they called it the magic faraway tree, and then when they wrote it down, they wrote secret woodland cake because clearly they couldn't write magic faraway
I
tree.
really hope there's outtakes of Noel and Henry like geeking over the magic faraway tree, like talking about Silky
That would've
and
been fantastic.
Moonface. Like something I always
Well, they
wanted to
started
try
with
was
Moonface.
yeah, I know. Like in the Saucepan Man. I just wanted them to talk about pop biscuits. I always wanted pop biscuits as a child.
Harry's cake idea was brilliant. It was genuine. Prue was like, I can't believe you came up with this. This is fantastic. And it was great. At the end, when they finished, and can't remember who it was exactly, it might have been Steph, who turned around and looked and went, I don't want to turn around and see that.
Yes, like, I finished. Oh.
All right, so Jamie.
Yeah.
Jamie decided to make a schnauzer cake. His dream cake was in the shape of a dog. More importantly, he referred to it as it's a flavour for all of us. It was salted caramel. Now,
It's too much.
at this point, I was starting to question if he can cook because he forgot the eggs. He's like, I was wondering why this is like cement.
Do you think, being one of the youngest in the tent, he's been latched onto by the spirit of Val?
Possibly.
Because forgetting shit was kind of her bag, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think
Or is it
that's-
wafted across from Canadian Bake Off?
I mean, we had a bunch of them forgetting the
Just
last year was
forgetting,
Canadian, but it could be Val. Like Val, it would make sense. I mean, Val's.
I was expecting them to all have to be tested for dementia.
If
Really.
he listens
So
to his
much
listens to his bake at any point in the next couple of weeks, we know.
Val with radical bloody surgery.
Yes. So Alice
starts doing his little exercises at the bench.
Now, Alice was making a sweet shop, and the reason she was making a sweet shop was she was making up for the fact that she had a lack of sweets as a child.
Because her parents were dentists. She
Now-
really is the Hermione Granger of the tent.
By this logic, I'm going to go upstairs shortly and I'm going to make a sunlight cake. Because I had a lack of sunlight as a child.
You still have a lack of sunlight as an adult.
It's trying to kill me. Anyway, Phil made a rocket out of sherbet sponge. I love the fact that Phil made a rocket out of sherbet sponge.
I love it that he was stroking his fondant monkey.
Well, we're going to get there, but we'll jump ahead.
Okay.
So I was going to get there, but we can't really ignore it. So Phil was shaping his fondant for the nose cone, and
First of all, he started with some Rice Krispies that looked awfully
that was fine.
phallic.
That was fine, but then he started stroking the fondant. And at this point, Kristie giggled. Giggled and giggled and giggled, and then just very quietly took a breath in, and under her breath went, penis.
I did.
It was so Kristie. There was no big proclamation. It was just a penis. Now, Amelia was making a carousel cake out of red velvet. She was like trying to work out how she was going to design it, and I'm like, ooh, if you're suddenly working out how to build it, once you're in there, you might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, just a bit on the back.
Like, you got to
Backpedaling.
You got to practice this one. Possibly should have had that one organised. David decided to make a snake because he had an albino Burmese python growing up.
And as he was mentioning that, you just saw Rosie's ears prick up.
Yes, Rosie's like, ooh. Now,
You had a snake. I have a snake.
having bagged David out earlier, the snake was pretty damn brilliant. Like, the egg with, you cut it open and the jelly snakes inside it. And the
was
way
beautiful.
he did the skin, it looked amazing. So
Yeah.
I'll give him a bit of credit on this one. And he made it out of chocolate, so, you know, he's not all heartless. Noel Fielding then got to utter his greatest sentence in the history of Bake Off, where he simply said, deadpan, the phrase, fondant monkey. Because
Which
Rosie
sounds like-
had a fondant monkey.
It really does sound like the name of a very successful band's first incarnation. You
Yeah.
know, like when they're like 15-year-old in a garage.
Yes.
You know, we went to
Yes.
youth rock
We started life
competitions.
as Fondant Monkey.
And now we are Monkey
You know,
Fondant.
it's like the band Fall Out Boy that started as Fall Out Boy as a joke from The Simpsons and got stuck with it. And they were like, we really don't like the name, but we can't
Get rid of
get
it.
rid of it now because everyone knows us by Fall Out Boy, and it was just a joke from The Simpsons. Now, Michael made a treasure chest, and like he made the gems out of molten sugar. It looked really cool. The design was really good. They loved it. Dan also overheard this and went, I'm making a pirate cake too, but he was making a full island, not a treasure chest.
No, he's like, I'm making the place where you could bury your treasure.
Yes.
You know, like you've made the booty, Michael. I've got the island.
Now, Michelle admitted that she'd never actually made her cake at the time and never finished it. It's a bold admission to make halfway through the showstopper.
But she was there. She's Welsh. I don't know if you knew it.
I worked that out. Not as badly as somebody else was Welsh. No funny shirts for her though.
Look, I have a feeling that it might be a cultural thing that Welsh people go around telling you they're Welsh, even though they talk in a very specific way, and you can kind of tell that they're Welsh.
Well, they go up at the end of it when they get,
Oh yes,
when they get excited. They go up.
it's the toilet thing.
So now they started to build. So Dan's like completely cracked, and he put a little bit of icing over it and went, "You'd never know." Michael dropped his completely, but then managed to flip it over and save it, which was really good. Michelle started tunneling like it was the Channel Tunnel. Like she's drilling through the side of hers. Phil then was trying to get his rocket to stand up, and he's like, well, hopefully it'll stand. And all I could think of was, I'm sure NASA said the same thing at around the time of Apollo 11. Hopefully it stands up.
Look, we're aiming for the moon. We hope it gets there. Just got to stroke our fondant a bit more.
So the important thing is, though, the quality of the decorations overall.
Just cut to a bunch of like NASA engineers.
The quality of the decorations overall, though, for everyone was really good. I was very impressed with it.
I think it's been one of the strongest starts to British Bake Off in quite a number of years.
Exactly. So, the judgment.
Yes.
So, Michelle, Prue absolutely loved how it looked. The cake was great. Prue goes, I'm dribbling, which was interesting. Prue loved the cake.
Pads for that Prue,
Exactly. And Paul thought it was absolutely faultless.
Yes, just do your Kegels.
Obviously not faultless enough.
No.
No handshake.
No.
No handshakes. I'm disappointed.
Maybe he was given a brief. Too many handshakes last year.
Well, last season he gave out handshakes every week, so
it's
you
just
know,
like
1 week he gave out 4.
He devalued the handshake.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Flooded the market.
It's hyperinflation.
Almost caused a stock crash.
Yep. Helena, they said was delicate and charming. The chocolate was terrific, and the depth of flavour was great.
Yeah.
Priya,
I would have been happy diving into that fairy garden.
You would have. Priya, they said it didn't look like a book. The sponge was a little bit drier than the one they'd had previously, but the sponge was quite good. That's what they said. They went, look, if we hadn't just had a really good sponge, we would have said this was good.
Yes.
You're okay with that. Alice's, they said, was absolutely beautiful and done really well. Phil, Prue can remember the moon landing. The others were trying to pretend not to. And Sandy's like, no, I remember it as well. They did say the cake was a little bit too sweet, unfortunately. Henry, they said it was a really close run thing. It looked amazing. The flavour would have been bad, but they had blackberry in there, and they said the blackberry just rescued it. Like it was millimetres away from disaster. Amelia, Paul looks at it and goes, I'm sure you ran out of time because I was expecting something bigger. And she's like, yeah, didn't quite get it done. The cake itself was claggy, and everything was a bit off the mark. Steph, they said the idea was really good, but the cake was crumbly, overbaked, and dry. But the flavour itself was good.
Yeah.
David, they absolutely loved it. They said the icing was the perfect thickness. They said the cake itself was beautiful. Rosie's was the one they argued over. Paul thought it was simplistic and clumsy. Prue said bullshit.
In those terms, exactly.
They both agreed, though, that the cake itself tasted delicious.
Yeah.
Michael, they said it looked great, the design was amazing, and the sponge looked great, but it needed more chocolate because it looked like chocolate, but you didn't get that kick. They liked Dan's waterfall effect. He even did the pour, which looked great. They had a very strong coconut flavour. Now, we had a passion fruit curd that you couldn't find. And Paul,
it's a coconut cake.
And Paul cut into the cake 3 different places to try to find it. He's like, oh, it's over there. So he cut into it there. He's like, it's over there. So he cut into there and he goes, it's not there.
No, you know what he forgot to do? He forgot to ask Steph's grandma.
Steph's grandma would have found it.
She would have found it.
Now, more importantly, Paul Hollywood should remember rule number 1. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Please stick to the lemon curds that you are used to.
So Jamie. Now, Jamie went with 4 sponges, which, given his track record in cake so far in this, is a bold statement.
Do you think he was trying to compensate for the missing sponge from the last challenge?
Maybe, but what happened was he put biscuits in the middle and they liked the biscuits. They said the cake was good in one mouthful, but a full slice was going to be way too strong. Then they played the drama music, and then Paul and Prue took turns crushing his dreams. One of them went, it's overbaked. Then Paul goes, there's not a lot of finesse. And they just laid into him. You're like, Jamie's screwed.
And at this point, this is when you and I started going, oh my God, they've done it. They've just pulled in a slightly, capable
A lovable
baker.
member of the crew.
Yeah.
Who's going to be a lovable person to send home. You're going to go, I love him, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
They sent Dan home. It's almost like they did everything we asked them to do and then fucked up the end.
Yeah, it's like, no, Dan was supposed to stay there.
I don't think anyone is more shocked than Jamie, who looked thoroughly confused as to what he was still doing there.
I truly hope Noel did riot and graffiti.
I hope so too. Michelle got Star Baker.
Paul's car. Yes, she did.
And that was fair enough. Look, her first challenge wasn't great, but the last 2 were really good.
Yeah.
So you can't really argue with that. And that is week 1.
Oh, yes.
Well, technically, it's week 0. Because now we're down to the actual number of bakers. That was week 0. So we can start from scratch now.
We'll be much more finessed next week.
100%. It'll be so much easier. We can take our time with it because there's not 13 bakers.
You'll just be rushing the usual amount not the extra usual amount.
It's crazy. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We're so pleased to be back. It's really good to be able to talk to everyone again and get back on the podcast. We've got some really cool episodes coming up as well. We have some guests lined up. I can't tell you too much, but I've got everyone lined up, and it's going to be an absolute blast, this series. So look forward to that. Until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we'll catch you all later.
Fondant monkey. Penis.